The American Institute of Mathematics is headquartered in Palo Alto, California, and invites some of the most prestigious mathematicians from all over the world to participate in workshops here. Today we'll find out some more about that work. Stay tuned.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Some of the most difficult mathematical problems take a long time and some hard work to resolve. We have people here who are doing that at the American Institute of Mathematics, known as AIM. Today we are speaking with the director of AIM, Dr. Brian Conrey, PhD. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. So, Brian, what is the mission of AIM?
The mission of AIM is to get teams of mathematicians to solve important mathematics problems. We have workshops to bring people together, about 30 people from all over the world, to really focus on some very specific problems and to spend a week working on these. We've invented a workshop style that's very productive for doing this. It has two lectures in the morning to get people up to speed, and then the afternoons are really all discussions, either group discussions, brainstorming, figuring out what the right problems are, and then actually getting into small groups, sort of 4 to 6 people at a time, and really beginning to work on these problems. It's a completely different style of workshop than...
I understand that, yeah.
And it's been very successful. We've had about 200 of these so far and have published about 700 papers with the results of these, and it's going very well.
So that is very different from the way it used to be, when it was just kind of one person working on a problem at a time.
Mathematics used to be regarded as sort of a solo venture where people really tried to do things all on their own, but problems are much more complicated these days, and it really helps to bring in experts from lots of different areas to get help with things, to mull the questions over and to talk about it. And the team approach is really successful. And I think the mathematics community it likes this way of doing things and are really taking to it. So we're very happy about that.
Very good. Okay. Well, when was AIM instituted?
Well, AIM was started in 1994 by John Fry, the CEO and founder of Fry's Electronics, and his business partner, Steve Sorensen, with the idea right from the start of focused collaborative research, getting the team approach to solve math problems. John was a quarterback in college at Santa Clara University, and so he has a team approach from his football team. And as the owner of a successful retail electronics business, he values the team approach and knows what you can do with teams. And he was a math major in college. I was actually a fellow student with him at Santa Clara, so I knew him from way back then. And he saw that in the math world there was he thought it was something he could bring to the math world, was the idea of solving things by teams. And so that was his idea from the start, and AIM became a nonprofit organization in 1994.
Well, how you say that it involves John Fry. How is it funded, and is the government involved at all?
Well, so initially in 1994, John Fry and the Fry Family Foundation and Fry's Electronics were the sole supporters of it. Right. And this is a very unusual thing. I talked to people from Europe, for example, and there are basically no examples of philanthropy on this order of things where somebody would start up a math institute. Now in the U.S. there are, I think, 3 private math institutes that have started up, the Clay Institute and the Simons Math Institute, but the AIM and John Fry were the first ones. And so at the beginning, so I came on board in 1997, And that's when we started having projects. So initially we would bring maybe 4 to 6 mathematicians that would come and really spend about 6 months there at AIM working on things. As you pointed out, math problems can be very difficult to solve.
Yeah.
One of our early successes was the perfect graph conjecture. It was regarded as the most prominent problem in an area called graph theory, and we actually did solve that. Not during that 6 months, but 4 years later with the team that we had assembled, plus another person. Then in 2002, there was a solicitation from the National Science Foundation to create some new mathematics institutes. They already had 3 math institutes in the US at the time, but saw a need to get some more. And so at that time, AIM, led by me, put in a proposal to the National Science Foundation to get one of these prestigious institute grants. And we were successful. Now there are a total of 8 math institutes, NSF-funded math institutes in the U.S., and we're one of them. And we just, in fact, got our renewal for funding from the NSF, a new 5-year grant to take us from years 11 through 15. And that's about a $12.5 million grant over that 5-year period. So now we're funded by the government as well as by Fry's Electronics and the Fry family.
Okay. So what's your annual budget running?
Well, we spend between $3 and $4 million a year we have the workshops, we have the squares, we have a program called Teacher Circle that maybe I'll talk about a little bit later that involves middle school teachers. We have some other outreach activities. We're involved in something called Mathematics of Planet Earth. And we have, in addition to our workshops, we have a program called Squares, which bring 4 to 6 people that are working on a specific problem. They come to AIM for about 5 days, and then they go away for a year and come back for another 5 days, and they come back a third time for another week. So they get 3 weeks in total over basically a 2-year period, and can work on something really ambitious then. And so we do 20 of these workshops and 30 of these squares per year. The squares program has turned out to be really popular. The people who do it, they just love it.
So has your program become maybe a model for some of the other institutes, or?
Well, I think so, in a way. So the other 7 institutes have a different model, which involves, they have a themed semester program that brings visitors for a semester, and maybe have a workshop or 2 during that semester. Whereas we're the only institute of these 8 that has a series of workshops. Now, there are some other workshop centers around the world. There's one in the Black Forest in Germany in Oberwolfach. There's one in Banff in the Canadian Rockies, and there's one near the French Riviera in Lumini that also has a workshop model. But those workshops tend to be 7 or 8 talks per day, and really the whole week is spent mostly in talks. Whereas we have just the 2 talks per day, and really an emphasis on getting people, identifying problems and into groups and working. And what we've noticed is that other workshop venues have started imitating it. In fact, they call it the AIM style of workshop. So we've made a name for ourselves there.
Well, that leads me to another question, and that is, do you pay these participants, or do you share in their expenses while they're here? Or? We
pay for all the expenses that they incur attending the workshop. So we pay for their travel, and we pay for their hotel and meals while they're there. And the other workshop centers pay for the local expenses, but not for the travel. So we're alone in the regard of paying for people's travel. But that turns out to be a very good thing, a very good use of funds. It really gets people in a cooperative mood, and they buy into the AIM style of workshop, and really, they really cooperate. I think initially when we started it, we didn't know if people really would get into the spirit of things and say, the problems that they regard as, the most important things, and share them, and, work with teams.
Well, who decides what problems to solve, and how do you accomplish in your AIM model?
Well, we have a scientific board that has about 20 mathematicians, most of them from math departments, but some from labs and industry. And they're from all over the place, and in representing all areas of mathematics, pure and applied. We do about 2/3 of our workshops, I would say, are what you might call pure or fundamental research, and about 1/3 are more applied or interdisciplinary type workshops, and we try to maintain that balance. We put out a call for proposals every year, and November 1st is our deadline, and we get proposals from all over the world, from people that have an idea about how an AIM workshop could really advance their field and do something significant. So we collect these, usually about 40 or so workshop proposals. Our scientific board then comes and meets the first Saturday of December, and they will have read the proposals before they come, but they meet and we hash it out and decide, what are the ones that we want to run over the next, the next period of time.
Okay.
And so we get a lot of help from experts all over the place to figure this out.
Okay. How do these problems that you solve, how do they relate to, our everyday life and our political structure?
Well, so as I said, about 2/3 of our workshops are pure and about 1/3 are applied. Now, the pure math ones would be a little bit difficult sometimes to try to relate that to your everyday life. But in fact, these are things that get developed sort of by mathematicians who sort of have a feel for where the whole of mathematics is going, and just internal consistencies and what are the right directions. And so that kind of steers the subject. And remarkably, the advances that get made in pure mathematics find their way into science and technology. Sometimes it might be a long time later. It could be as much as 50 years later. Sometimes it's very quick. But those are not so obvious to predict what's going to happen. But what we can predict is that the mathematics that gets developed will be used. And then about 1/3 of our workshops are things that if I describe them to you, you would instantly understand the importance of that. I can give you a couple of examples.
Please.
We had one recently called, that was on high-frequency ultrasound. And the idea was to focus ultrasound on cancerous tumors inside a person's body, and by focusing that to heat up the cells there and so kill the cancerous cells. But of course, in doing that, you have to make sure that you don't damage the healthy tissue that surrounds it. And this involves solving partial differential equations on very irregular shaped domains. So the tumors are, can be shaped in any way.
Sure.
And while we do have algorithms for solving these partial differential equations, the complications of the shape create sort of enormous computational difficulties. So we had a team of people from Caltech that are specialists in the mathematics, and a team from Boston that are engineers and help design the ultrasound, how to propagate the ultrasounds, and then medical researchers from London. And so they teamed together to try to solve this problem. And with the new mathematical techniques, the new algorithms for quickly solving partial differential equations in irregular domains, there's a hope that this may be a technology within a few years. So we're very excited about that. Another example involves the Pajaro Valley over in Watsonville, where Driscoll's and others grow lots of the berries that we love so much. And they have a problem with their underground aquifer there, that it was being depleted by overuse, and that led to intrusion of salt water into the aquifer. And so the question is, how can you? There are lots of issues here. How do you share the resources? How do you decide exactly how much water to use? What things should be grown, and sort of in what order? And it's a very complicated mathematics model. But working with Driscoll's and with some of the stakeholders over there and mathematicians, we have had a team that's been creating models to do exactly that. And it's pretty good. It's very satisfying to do something like that actually is so obviously, so tangibly useful.
Well, what about our youth? Does AIM provide any programs for the school kids?
Yes, we do. We have, so right now AIM is located in Palo Alto, but our ultimate home is going to be Morgan Hill. And we run a program down there called Morgan Hill Math that is for enrichment for bright kids that are interested in doing some more mathematics. They're after-school programs. And we work with kids all the way from 3rd and 4th grade, all the way through seniors in high school. We've been doing that for about 10 years now. It started with what we call a Math Counts program, which is for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That's part of a national program that this is Professional Engineering Society started up, Math Counts. And we coach teams of kids to participate in those competitions. It's kind of like the spelling bee. You do sort of a local thing, and then you move on to state, and then possibly on to the nationals. And so we've had a lot of kids from Morgan Hill doing that.
Very good.
In all of our programs now, we have probably 200 kids down there. It's a relatively small community, maybe 35,000 people, but about 200 kids a year are involved in this. This past year, I worked with 2 kids on a science fair project. That are two kids that are in high school. They entered their project in the San Jose competition and won that. They won the whole competition, actually. Got to go to Pittsburgh for
that's encouraging.
International one. And they got an honorable mention from the American Mathematical Society. And then, in fact, the 3 of us wrote a paper together, which has just been accepted for publication in the journal called Experimental Math. So that's kind of fun. But
good.
Yeah. So we're very interested in encouraging kids that like math to go on and maybe become mathematicians or engineers or I mean really whatever as much math as you can get is going to help you in essentially any profession that
That's
you do.
true.
So we definitely like doing that. The other thing we do, our other big outreach, in fact our biggest outreach program is something that we call Math Teacher Circle, MTCs for short. And these are groups of middle school math teachers. They get together with professional mathematicians on a regular basis to work on problems, to solve problems, even to do research on problems. And it's a really interesting thing, I think. It started with the first Math Teacher Circle was in Palo Alto about 8 years ago, and that's still going on. But now we've used our AIM model of workshop to export math teacher circles around the country. So each summer we have 2 workshops that are called How to Run a Math Teacher Circle. Each one of those workshops brings 6 teams from all over the country to the workshop. A team is 2 mathematicians, 2 middle school teachers, and a 5th person that can be helpful for the effort. Then in the mornings we have 2 model math teacher circle sessions, and in the afternoon we have work, just like in a regular AIM workshop. And the work is planning, especially on the parts of the teams, the logistics, how they're going to recruit teachers, how they're going to recruit mathematicians, how they're going to raise money to run their math circle. And then the idea is they go off, and a year later, the following summer, they would start their own math teacher circle with an immersion workshop, a 5-day workshop that brings maybe 20 to 25 middle school teachers in and gets them going on really interesting problem solving. And so in that way, we've started 50 math teacher circles around the country.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're very proud of that.
Good. And that all helps the kids and, as you say, introduces math concepts at student level.
Right. We try to get the teachers, it's really for the teachers, we try to get the teachers to think about math the way mathematicians do. To think of mathematics as an open subject, a living subject, with lots of tools, resources to solve whatever problem you have. Your bag of tricks, you can use anything to solve any problem. And so we focus on problems, not exercises. That's one of the first things we talk about. We think of an exercise as something you already know how to do, but a problem is something you really don't. And so we get teachers thinking, along those lines, the way mathematicians do, and it just changes their whole outlook, their passion for the subject, and then that carries over into the classroom. And it's what employers want. If you're an employer in Silicon Valley and you want to hire somebody, you want somebody that's able to solve problems, somebody that has resources at their disposal to solve whatever problem comes up.
Right.
And we don't even know, 10 years from now, we have no idea what those problems are going to look like, right? And so having people that are used to thinking outside the box, let's say, is what you want. And so that's what we're trying to do with this Math Teachers Circle. Yeah.
Okay. Well, going back to that earlier question, I think you talked to me earlier that you have a project, Planet Earth, that you're working on this year.
That's right, and that's a really interesting thing, I think. So this year, 2013, has been designated Mathematics of Planet Earth 2013, so MPE 2013. You can go to the website mpe2013.org and see a lot of the things that are planned. It's a loose initiative of about more than 100 institutes, societies, research centers of mathematics all over the world that have banded together to try and use a year to highlight the ways that mathematics can be used to solve some of the problems that we all face. And this is interpreted in a very broad sense. I mean, everybody's heard about climate change and global warming, but that's just a part of it. I mean, there are possible natural hazards. I mean, asteroids or meteors coming in, or earthquakes and tsunamis. So things like earthquake prediction or modeling tsunamis and trying to understand how these things work. But also spread of disease, inoculations, how do you do that the most efficient way? Financial things, what are the right, how do we understand these really complex systems? And so mathematics plays a role in all of these things. So through these 100 institutions that are involved in this, we have planned 10 long-term programs at various institutes all over the world. There are about 60 week-long workshops that are going to happen, 3 of them at AIM. There are public lectures, 2 very nice public lecture series. One is funded by the Simons Foundation, that's the East Coast Math Institute, and they're doing 9 very high-profile talks all over the world. One of them just happened March 4th in San Francisco. We collaborated with MSRI, the Math Research Institute from Berkeley, and co-hosted Emily Schuckberg in a talk at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, Climate Disruption, What Math and Science Have to Say. We had more than 900 people at that, and it was just a spectacular success.
Very good.
And that will clips from these 9 talks will eventually show up on television. We're going to make a nice show out of all this. There are curriculum materials being developed as part of MPE that will go to the schools. There are just all kinds of different things that are happening. So it's very exciting. And it was not AIM's original idea to do this. It was the idea of Christiane Rousseau from the CRM, the Institute in Montreal. She had the idea to do this whole thing. But AIM really picked up on it and has been one of the primary organizers of this for all over the world. And really what I have to say is that the skills we have learned, the AIM staff has learned by doing these AIM-style workshops and trying to understand and learn how to get mathematicians to work together, served us extremely well in getting math institutes all over the world to work together. And so it's been a really interesting and worthwhile project.
Very good. Okay. Well, let's go back. You've mentioned John Fry and his involvement. I understand he has even bigger plans for AIM, including a physical move down to Morgan Hill and the castle. Tell us about that.
That's right. Right now we're in what we call the Math Warehouse in Palo Alto. It's the former corporate headquarters of Fry's. It's right next to the Palo Alto Fry's store. It's in about 8,000 square feet space there. It's a really nice space and works very well for us and for what we do. But John Fry's plans to move to the Math Castle, which would be in Morgan Hill, on 190 acres of land down there, and really a magnificent castle modeled after the Alhambra from Granada, Spain. It'll be 180,000 square feet. The mathematicians who come to our workshop will actually stay in the building and eat there and have access to all the property and to the nearby hiking and things. It'll just be spectacularly beautiful. So the tilings are just incredible. They're so mathematical. The walls designed with these, these elaborate tilings everywhere are just stunning. I mean, I had seen them in pictures and read about them, but when you actually see it in person, it's like, that's what we're going to do. That is so great. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Well, let's take a look at the castle. We've got a little DVD that will show this model of the Alhambra.
Uh-huh.
What future plans do you have? Will you expand your permanent staff when you go into this castle?
Yes, moving into the castle will be just an amazing opportunity. I mean, this will just be a landmark on the face of science in the United States. And the possibilities are kind of mind-boggling of what we can do. And I don't even really know. I mean, I look at what we've done with our 8,000 square feet in Palo Alto, and the idea of having a castle is absolutely amazing. When I said it's modeled after the Alhambra, I mean, quite literally, there will be a courtyard of the lions. It's almost a replica of the courtyard of the lions in the original Alhambra. And 3 or 4 of the rooms that adjoin that, the Hall of Ambassadors, the Hall of Kings, will be also almost exactly the same, with the really ornate ceilings and the tilings. And some of the etchings on the wall will be mathematical, though. We're going to put some math in there, maybe some theorems and some proofs of theorems, and so that will be kind of interesting. But I don't know. Some of the things we could do. We could host the U.S. Math Olympiad team, the brightest high school students that are going to compete in the International Olympiad. Maybe they'll come there and train, or we'll do things with our teachers down there, or I just don't even know what. We'll have the capability of having more workshops in squares, so we could quite possibly do that kind of thing.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for meeting with us today, and you've given us insight into this world-class activity that's going on right here in our backyard. So we really appreciate the time you spent with us.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the program. We'll see you again here next week, same time. Bye-bye.